here we are, day 2, and the front #1 cylinder stud came out of the block with the nut. This is not a problem. It's easy to do. It still clears, and you can either take the nut all the way off the stud and put the stud back in the block when you have the exhaust manifold off, or you can just put it back in the way it is. Well, unfortunately I had to put it back in real quick because behind there is coolant passage. So now I'm draining a few gallons out, and I realized that when I put this on there, I had this nice drain valve that normally goes for the air tanks. I really need to get a street elbow 90 degree so I can shoot that straight down, and then that way the coolant's not running along the inside of the bumper and then down into the bucket. But I mean, it's working, but still, it's got to be creative, right? So I'll get this drain down below that level, finish taking out the lower bolts, and we'll go from there. Take all the nuts off, and then you slide it out from underneath the intake. You can tell where some of the gasket material was making contact, and then where it was leaking around them. So I'm gonna clean these up real quick, just a buffing wheel, and I'll take the old gasket off the blocks and put our new ones on there. Coming to help, baby? You gonna help me? Yes, I know you want to. You just want to eat everything, don't you? I scraped off all the old gasket material, cleaned up the surface as best I could down in there. Maybe you get a better view this way. So, and you could tell, I don't have any of it up here, but you could tell it was gasket material with the, I think in this one you can see it. See the metal impregnated in there? So you could tell several of the back ones where the leaks were worse, there was no gasket material left. It was just that metal. It was sitting there rusted. Another issue is these new gaskets, you see they're too wide, they hit right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my side cutters, trim them up a little bit, and get them to fit on there. You can see I trimmed some off there. Let me see if that'll fit past this edge. Still binding right here, so I might have to cut some more off. Don't want to try to repair a problem and spend all this time and energy and the thing still leaks. So let me take that back off and cut some more off. Up at an angle and then down from the top. It'll go in there pretty good. Fits in there and clears that intake manifold. So all I gotta do is put the other 4 in and slap the exhaust manifold back on. Bolt it up, put the turbo on, all the intake and exhaust pipes on, and we'll be ready to fire her up. Let's see if you can see. See in there how that clears? Looks pretty good. So just got to do 1, 3, and or yeah, 1, 4, and 6 now, and we'll be done. All right, now I'll get that knocked out and we'll get the manifold back on. So I cleaned it off, cleaned the exhaust manifold off with the flapper wheel on the portable grinder. Did pretty good. There's some places where it's pitted because this is what came out. This is that metal that's impregnated in the gasket, and you can see how rusty it is. It actually had blown, the gasket material had blown out around both sides of it, so this was just sitting in there with a gap on either side. Just condensation has rusted it out, plus the soot from diesel is slightly acidic. So we're getting ready to put the manifold on now, put the turbo back on, and plumber back up and ready to test fire. Hey, I got it all back together again. Intake's on, exhaust is on, hooked up, turbocharger's on, oil return's on, dipstick's back in, refilled the radiator, snugged all the bolts down. I'll probably do another snug after running it, after the manifold heats up. I'll just go in and put a little bit more torque on the exhaust manifold. Not too much though. These gaskets say they only need 20 foot-pounds. So, but the real tell will be to see if it's leaking. So this is a D turbo for an LDT. Both the LDSs I had did not have the LDS turbochargers on. An LDT's or D turbo's fine. A D turbo puts out slightly more than a C turbo, and the C turbo's got more of that Deuce, the real high-pitched Deuce whistle, which a lot of guys like. I actually traded several D turbos for a guy that wanted C turbos just for the whistle. So then that goes into this collar that came off of the LDS turbocharger that I found at a swap meet. Then here's an elbow off a 5-ton welded to the expansion joint off of an A3, an M35 A3, welded to the collar, or bolted to the collar, and the collar is welded to an adapter that goes up to the bigger size for the muffler. So, and now this contraption, which looks pretty good, I don't have it on there all the way because I'm going to actually take it off when I fire the engine up so that I can put something over the intake if it runs away. The fuel shutoff on these things sometimes will stick if they've been sitting for a long time. You never can be too careful with an old diesel. It's always good to have a piece of wood or something other than a rag or your hand to put over the inlet of the intake or the turbo or whatever. So if it runs away when you first fire it up, especially after it's been sitting a while, you can block it off. So this is, of course, the A3 intake filter, and that elbow came off an A3. Then this reduction piece, this weird reduction piece, came off of a 5-ton, and this piece is off a standard Deuce and a half. Normally it runs between the stock filter and this U pipe, and the U pipe goes down to you got a little piece of hose here that goes on with the turbo. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this off. I just have it sitting on there to show you guys how it goes on there. All right, so I'll put that on there. I'm gonna try to start it up. I probably won't run it I probably won't film it while I'm trying to start it because you never know. Well, maybe I will. We'll see. But I'll do a final check and then I'll try to fire it up. Well, it's smoking pretty good, but it has been sitting, so, and it did kind of smoke before. leaks. This exhaust drifting back at me, but oh, I gotta shut it down. I got an oil leak. So let me shut her down and fix that, and we'll get back to it. Leak. My oil leak was that fitting there, where it goes on here. I don't know if you can see it. See how that it no longer seals on the tube. And also when I put it on, I guess it's sort of cross-threaded this, which may have caused this, or that may have been like that. That's why it's handy to have spare engines laying around. I've got that, and I've got the fitting that goes on the block. Had to take the relief spring out of the oil pump. I'm gonna spin that fitting out of the block, and then I'll take the one off my parts engine, slap it on there, and put the new tube on, and we should be back in business. I'll put the intake on too, since it ran so good, and should be ready to rock and roll then. Do some road tests. Check the brakes first. Brakes also have a tendency to go out on these things when they sit, so it's always a good idea to test the brakes. I know that I had a leak in rear wheel cylinder, and so I may go ahead and change that out before I start driving it on the road. I have all the parts for that, so let me get this swapped out and we'll try to run it again.